So today I'm sitting down with Emeline of Off Track Family to discuss recent upgrades that they've made to their off track Land Rover that they drive. Hi Emeline, it's great to see you. It's been a year since we last spoke, so why don't you start by telling us sort of what that's been like for yourselves that past year?
Okay, hi Craig. Thank you for having me today. So yeah, a lot has been done on the Defender since last year. So the setup we had previously, we had it for almost 10 years, and last year we started to talk about upgrading and maybe changing. And the reason for that is that yes, we travel quite a lot and go out on weekends, but our big plan is really to be able to travel on the long term at some point. But as you know, we have two kids, they are at school for the moment, and we want them to finish school before going out in the world and exploring further. So this is the purpose of this full upgrade of our Land Rover Defender. So we wanted to make it easier for us to set up, have a more efficient 12-volt setup in the Defender to be able just to go off-grid and don't worry about anything.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So the upgrade sort of is to make you more off-grid, sort of able to sort of handle that kind of aspect a little bit
Yeah,
better than.
so it was a long process of thinking what would be best for us, because we had a good setup, and
Mm,
it started really with nothing. When we bought the Defender back in 2009, we had nothing.
mm,
It wasn't like a real plan to go out and explore. We just started to go out on weekends, then travel a lot more with the car, then going off by plane further. And so my husband started to add a dual battery system, and everything went well with all the accessories that we had, like really simple, just a fridge, and nothing like extravagant in our
yeah,
setup compared to now. But we started to have a 55 amp hour auxiliary battery. And in fact, when I started to share everything on social media and needing to have the computer with us when traveling and filming and recharging all the equipment, we realized that this small auxiliary battery wasn't enough. We could just only stop a night, like work on the computer for an hour, recharge the camera, and then nothing was
out of
okay.
power.
Like, yeah, out of power for the night. And we were a little concerned more about the fridge and what
Mm,
we had in the fridge. So we then upgraded for a bigger auxiliary battery, and we went for a 170 amps hour AGM auxiliary battery,
yeah.
and which was perfect for our
Mm,
setup. Like, never had any issues since then. I think we replaced it in 2018. Yeah,
yeah.
as our plan is to become more autonomous and be
Yeah.
able to travel without any worries. We also decided that we wanted to upgrade for an induction cooktop.
Mm,
So that was like the main subject of our new setup. Like, we
yeah.
decided that it would be better for us to be more autonomous if we could just rely on the fuel we need for driving the car,
Mm,
and then no gas needing to cook or nothing else. So that was the main thing. So if you want an induction cooktop, you have to have a bigger battery, and then you also need a bigger inverter to power up all this. And so this was like the base. Okay, so we want an induction cooktop. And then I said, okay, if we travel longer the long term and we have an induction cooktop and become more autonomous, but still have like this luxurious setup,
mm.
I want a hair dryer. So this was like the two things that we wanted
Yeah.
to add in our comfortable
Mm,
setup, because obviously you can do without anything. I mean, this is really personal. Some people like to have a huge camping setup with
mm,
tables and chairs and an indoor kitchen and all that.
yeah.
this is not really our priority. Our priority, sorry,
It's okay.
is really to be able to stay outside, but be autonomous
Yeah.
regarding the electrical setup, and
Mm.
also being able to get out of any bad situation by having all the tools and the recovery kit needed. So as we had the base of what we wanted regarding some accessories,
Yeah.
then we started to look which battery, which inverter. And we tend to go big. I know we could have taken maybe an inverter, a 2000-watt inverter, but then we started to research a lot and see what was possible with this inverter or that inverter, and also with the batteries. And
Yeah, because you
it
previously
was,
had 550 watts and you were jumping up to a good few thousand. So I'm guessing
yeah,
that was kind of a bit of a research that you had to put, a lot of research that you had to put into what type you'd needed and size
yeah,
wise as well.
a lot of research, a lot of brainstorming, like, is it really necessary? Should we really do this? Because if we replace the battery and go for lithium, the price was a huge
Yeah.
drawback, because they are very expensive compared to AGM batteries. But then we thought, we have to live with our time. I mean, there are so many upgrades compared to 10 years ago in
Yeah.
the all the electric and electronics. So we are confident now that lithium batteries are okay to have in a car setup. I mean, if it was 10 years ago, we started to see some people using lithium batteries, we weren't that confident. But now we are confident that how they are made is they should be less dangerous than before.
Yeah, the technology has progressed to a point now where I think, you know, we know a lot more about them, and the safety measures that have been put in place as a result of that have definitely sort of come into play. So it's great that you had that confidence. So you upgraded your inverter, you've gone much higher, that's so you can run your things like your hairdryer and your you know, your new induction hob, and you, as you mentioned, you upgraded to lithium. Were there other benefits you saw from upgrading to the lithium other than just the power?
The size. We
Mm.
had this huge AGM battery of 170 amps hour, which was weighing 45 kilos. And we were able to find, with your help, the Victron lithium battery of 330 amps hour, but the size is really similar, and it's only 30 kilos compared to the AGM one. So yes, it's still heavy, for sure. It's a heavy battery, but
Yeah,
we gain 15 kilos on that battery. So,
yeah,
and it's the size is really similar, like a few centimeters bigger or larger. So for us, that was like a huge positive point for
yeah,
the
absolutely.
setup.
Because you're just taking out one battery and essentially putting in a new, which is
Exactly.
lighter and can provide you with much more power. So it's a massive
Mhm.
upgrade. I know when you planned around the system, you know, because you've got a much larger system now, space must have been very, very difficult to sort of try and find, because your Land Rover is not massive, and as you said, you know, you're pretty much trying to live in it. So that must have also played a massive role into the products that you picked out.
Yeah, well, as now we know our priorities and what's important for us, it was
Mm,
easier for us to make this new setup, because the previous setup we had, it was really elements we found, and it was really over time, like, oh, we like to do it like this now, so we're going to buy this setup. Oh, we will add this accessory. So it was like more of a puzzle before.
yeah.
We had the interior layout, wooden layout, and he managed to add accessories over the years. But now, as we started from scratch, we took out everything,
Mm,
and we knew our priorities, what was important for us. It was easier to set up, like, okay, this space, we're going to use
mm,
it for the electrical setup. And many people say, like, this is too big. Why are you using the gullwing on the side
Yeah.
to put this element? All the electrical elements, it's taking up a lot of space. But for us, no, it's not taking up a lot of space because we want it, and that we know that it's important for us to be autonomous and have this electrical setup.
Yeah.
Honestly, we didn't think we would need all the elements that we have added since the beginning of this year. Because, as I said before, it was a lot of research. So we started with the base, the induction cooktop, then okay, I want a hairdryer. And we said, okay, we changing for lithium battery. Then we're gonna have this bigger inverter, 3000 VA, which is huge.
Yeah.
It is huge. But while researching and trying to find some information or maybe some similar setup as ours, we noticed that many trucks do put lithium batteries, but like 400 amps lithium batteries. So this is why we are also happy with the one that you provided us, because it's only a battery, and in fact we were able to fit it in the space that we had decided that it would be the space for the electrical setup, have the inverter aside, and everything fits in properly.
Yeah. I've seen the setup. It looks really nice and neat, the way in which you've got it all laid out, which is a testament to the way in which you went about it and how you planned it out. You and your husband. I know the inverter it's not just an inverter, it's an inverter charger. So I'm guessing that also was quite a big benefit for you, having that ability to gain shore power as well.
Yeah, because we didn't think about it in the beginning, because we said, okay, well, yeah, we can have this possibility, but we might not use it because when we travel or go out on weekends, we rarely go on campsites. I don't know the last time we went on a campsite.
Yeah.
So we said, oh, there's this option, but we might not use it. And then with the big battery, we said, well, we have this option. We're going to make the setup so everything can work properly and that we can use all the possibilities with the inverter. So it's not finished yet, but we have already tested it, and yes, we can charge the auxiliary battery with the inverter. And in fact, it's great because we have this type of traveling for the moment, but it's the holiday type of traveling.
Yeah.
So
it gives you that whole extra element, doesn't it? It gives you that sort of ability to utilize it if you do need it in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that you see today in our setup is really for the future. Like we know we don't especially need it for the moment, but we are trying to see further than just today or the next year, but to see the next 10 years, like our previous setup, because we are doing this now, but we are confident that it will last over time and that we shouldn't need to replace the battery. We shouldn't need to replace the inverter.
Yeah.
So these two elements were the big two elements for the base, and we wanted to add some other elements. So we had the radar DC to DC 40 amps already on our previous setup, and we liked it a lot. So we wanted to keep it, and then we wanted to add the Egan DC hub. So this is an Australian component that is made by Klarman and 4X Overland. Maybe the people that follows Australian travel guys know 4X Overland. So he's in this community for many years and trying to develop some components that can help all the four-wheel drive overlanders. So we were really keen on having this. How to say in English? Sometimes I forget my English words.
That's okay. I think I had a look into the Egan hub. It's basically a distribution hub, from what I've gathered. So all of your electronics go through it, including all your charging sources and all your outputs. And that must have made your build a lot easier and a lot simpler from that aspect because
Yeah, it puts all the accessories together, and you
yeah,
only need like one cable, one positive and one negative cable
mm,
from the starter battery, from the alternator
yeah,
to the hub, and then it distributes everything. It's like a fuse box, but way easier. You don't
yeah,
need like many cables to go from the auxiliary battery like we had before. One cable
mm,
goes to the fuse box, another one, and then the other one. This is like just one cable from the alternator, and then all the auxiliary system stays together, and
yeah.
yeah, is distributed
Just
properly
makes it a
together.
lot more simple for you, doesn't it?
Exactly. So what was complicated is that we had this base, so the lithium battery, the inverter, the red arc, and the Egan DC hub. And then what we realized is that the lithium battery we have is a good size for us and
Mm,
like a really good power, but it only has like a small BMS inside of it.
yes.
And to make everything work properly, in fact, we had to add a BMS.
Mm,
So we bought the BMS 500
yeah.
that you provided us to monitor all this system. And we could have gone with a smaller BMS, but in fact, we realized that as we have this Egan DC hub, it was complicated to make work all the elements properly together.
Mm,
So as a long-term investment, it was best for us to take like the high-end BMS
yeah.
that can have that can do different things. Like
Mm.
this, we don't have any issue with the setup.
Yeah, definitely. And it was one of the things we looked at when we did look at your build, why the extra BMS was required in terms of the setup, given that the battery does have the internal. And then it was a case of noting, what your application was going to be and that changes needed to be made to that. So that's a really good point to bring up because I think a lot of people would just naturally assume with the battery having a BMS, they can just install it. But sometimes it does come down to your use. So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Perfect. No, you're right. Because I know that some other take like batteries with integrated BMS, but the
Mm,
batteries are way
mm,
bigger than the one we have. So this was an element we didn't plan to add that we had to add. And then, so we have the red arc and we are planning to add solar panels on the pop-up roof
yeah.
when we will have our pop-up roof to also have solar power to still stay in this autonomous thinking. First, we thought we would use the red arc, but the red arc is a great product, but in fact, we couldn't monitor the
Mm,
solar input. So we would know that something is coming in, but we wouldn't know what. So
yeah.
then my husband said, okay, so we need to add the Victron MPPT solar converter. So we added this element too. And then the last element that wasn't planned to add was the Serbo GX. And
Yes.
this is like to monitor everything. And in fact, when you have all Victron products, the fact of adding this Serbo GX simplifies everything in
Mm,
terms of monitoring. We have this screen, and for
mm,
me or the kids, it's just so easy. Like you turn on the screen and then you can just so easily see, okay, power is coming in from the DC, power is
mm,
coming in from solar, power is used for the accessories. You can just see the input, the output of everything. And if we only use the red arc to for the solar input, we wouldn't have seen the solar input on the
yeah.
screen. It would have come from the DC power, and it
Mm,
would have mixed up with the DC power coming in. So
mm.
this is why we added the Victron MPPT. So
Because you wanted to be able to see and monitor that use. And it's quite good as well that you pointed out that the Serbo is so user friendly that even your kids have been able to sort of be able to see how your system is operating. Because I know that sometimes can be quite confusing for customers who have got systems as complex as yours So to hear from yourself that, that's made it a lot simpler to read, that's a really big benefit.
Yeah, and we were able to also add temperature gauges from Ruvi. I think they're from Sweden, and this was just simply added on the panel, so we can also
Oh,
see,
perfect.
like, we've put one in the fridge, we have one outside, so now we can know the outdoors temperatures when we're in.
Perfect. Great for the cold
Yeah.
weather.
We don't have that on the Defender. I know that some on other cars you can just see the outdoors
Mm,
temperature when you're driving, but there's not that on the Defender.
no.
So there, so yeah, everything is working properly for the moment. We haven't finished everything
Yeah.
yet, so we just tested it in front of our home, put the induction hub, then try to plug some other stuff. So
Mm,
for the moment, we are really happy with the setup. Obviously,
good.
we'll have to go out and test
Yes.
everything, but as the interior setup isn't finished yet, that we don't have the pop-up roof,
Mm.
the holidays of good holidays will be maybe for Christmas.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. So, I mean, your whole system basically changed completely. And as you said, you ripped everything out. Were you quite surprised when you did put everything back in and you were able to do it, how much cable or connectors and all that you've saved? Because
Yeah, when we took everything out and that my husband started to really take off all the cables, we had so many cables going up the snorkel, so many cables underneath the car that, that were just under there to power up everything at the back. And
yeah.
in fact, I think that we removed about like 75% of all the cables.
Wow.
Yeah, just by having this Egan DC hub for all the accessories, meaning that we only have like those two
Mm,
cables going from front to the back to the auxiliary system, and then having everything really in a small
mm,
compact space means
yeah.
that all the large cables that we used before, they are so short that in
Yeah.
fact it's not like everywhere in the car or just.
No, yeah. Knowing where you were going to put everything sort of helped with that and made you able to reduce the amount of cable that you've used throughout the build.
Yeah,
Which,
completely.
yeah,
Yeah,
75% is a massive amount to save
I
onto
think,
cable
yeah,
and
I
weight.
would
Yeah.
say 75% because I saw what was lying on the floor and that
Mm,
we didn't put back in the
back
car.
in, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, going through everything, what were your sort of major takeaways? What did you learn going through it? Like, what like stood out to you that you didn't know before going into it?
So, um, a lot. I mean, just first that when you take out everything, you realize all the work that was done throughout all those years.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're a family, so we try to always stay engaged
Mm,
in whatever is happening. And as this was our travel companion, I tried to stay engaged in the work that my husband was doing on the car. But when I started sharing everything, I realized all the hours that he put in this car. So
absolutely.
we can enjoy just being outdoors and have fun time off-road with
Mm,
the car. So that was the first part. And then when we really started to do everything together,
mm,
so I could share everything, the massive research time
mm,
researching, and I can say that today it's really easy compared to before,
yeah.
because when we started this slowly in 2009, 10, 11, 12, starting to go further and further, finding the information on the internet wasn't the same as before. He went on forums, and this is
Mm,
something that is still used today, that we still use today to find some information, but getting the information is really easy today. You can just go on YouTube or contact someone that isn't especially a professionals like you who start to really get into this four-wheel drive overlanding setup, makes everything easier, but it's complicated still to find the right information for a specific setup.
Yeah.
And all the brainstorming is really important, knowing what every person wants when traveling. This is also an important part because it's not like a solo travel and you say, okay, no, I don't need that, but maybe then the person with who you travel wants something different.
Absolutely, because
So,
you've had to take into not only consider yourself and your husband, but your two children who, at their ages now, they will change as they grow older and their needs will change as a result of that. They might want more iPads, they might want more accessories themselves. So taking that into consideration must be been incredibly difficult during those brainstorming situations, thinking about where are we going to be as a family in 10
yeah,
years' time.
that's why it's complicated to find the right setup, and every setup is really different. And I find it really interesting to be able to find some ideas on social media, on the internet, with people sharing their setup, because no setup is perfect. I mean, our setup is perfect for us,
Yes.
and it's made for us, for our needs, our priorities. And being a family is really different compared to couples that travel together. And what is interesting is that as we have this family journey together and that we go out with our children and the Defender since they are babies, for them, when we travel with the car, not having all the electronic, all the what we can have at home, watching TV or being on the phone, they're fine with that for the moment.
Which is good.
And they still want to go out with us, and they are still thrilled to organize the journey with the Defender or go out on weekends. So that's great. Our main goal is still to be outside, because in fact our car is still a car, and we just can't go inside and chill with the heater on.
No, absolutely not. It hasn't got the space, and I think that's one of the things that your videos and your social media is great for, because for the time being, it has been mostly you working on the vehicle, but I know in the past it's been very much about the wonderful places that you've been to and visited and seen. And I think that as well is probably why your kids are more than happy to put away a gamepad or put away a TV, because they're seeing such incredible sights. And having the van in this situation now just means that you're able to go off further and see even greater sites without the need for gas or electricity, essentially, because you can self-make it.
Yeah, this was really the goal, just to be autonomous the more that we could, and really have a efficient setup and a reliable setup, meaning that it seems complicated, I know, but I know that if we have an issue, as my husband did everything, and he supposedly could help for having the car back on track if we have a breakdown on the
Absolutely.
electrical setup. So this is also something that we learned through all those years, is that starting little by little, doing everything ourselves, does help when you are outdoors and that you are alone and that you have an issue. And it can, I mean, my husband isn't a mechanic, isn't an electrician, he just a
He's
normal
just
guy.
self-taught.
Yeah, and the reason why it's like that today and that he is able to do everything that he does, it's really because we started by bringing the car to a garage, then change garage, and then he said, okay, well, I can start by doing, I don't know, change the oil, and then install this accessory. I think I'm able to do this, and researching for information on the internet on how to do stuff. And it was really little by little. And I know that now I feel we have a really reliable Land Rover Defender. I know this is something that people say, oh, it's not a reliable car. I feel we have a reliable car because we can rely on my husband to take us out of a bad situation, because he has a lot more knowledge today of the car than years ago. So
absolutely. I mean, I know I myself was very impressed when you came to us with the idea for the electrical system, how much planning had gone into it and how in depth your husband and yourself had gone into it to know what products you wanted and why you wanted them. You know, from that aspect, we didn't really have to do a lot of work with yourselves, because your husband had garnered such great knowledge. And it's really great that, you know, he's in a position now, having done all that, to be able to hopefully fix 90% of any issues that you do suffer with when you are on the road. And that does give you some great flexibility.
It does. And I feel confident now when we go out. Not that I didn't feel confident before. It was something just out of my mind, like, okay, we could break down. Like, I never thought about that. But it was more over time. Well, the car ages and the system ages. So you're more prone to have some problems, obviously. But today, I know that if we are abroad anywhere, I know that if we have a breakdown on the electrical side, because we are into this right now, I know that he could like analyze properly, like where is the problem coming from. Okay, I can say that it's not that, it might be this. And as said before, today is really easy because we are on many groups, you have the internet, we can contact you like, hi Craig, so we have this problem. Can you help us? And having like all this community available for helping anyone when someone has a breakdown, well, this is really helpful nowadays when you travel, because you know that you can just ask and someone will certainly give a good information. You still have to be a bit picky and read everything and say, okay, no, this is a bit stupid, this isn't like this has nothing to do with my issue. But at least most people want to help, and this is great in this community.
No, I think that's a brilliant point, really, to maybe close this interview in on, because you're adding to that community with these videos and with this interview in itself. So I'm sure there'll be many people out there who are very grateful to see the setup that you've done and know that they can build that themselves. So thank you very much for joining me today and taking part in this interview. And I wish you all the best of luck in the future and hope to see your adventures soon.
Well, thank you, Craig. Thank you very much for your help.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Right.